Welcome, everybody, to another live recording of the Business Travel 360 Linking the Travel Industry podcast, where we discuss travel industry news you are talking about on LinkedIn. My name is Rian, and I'm one of your hosts today. I'm a co-founder at Agentivity, where we do amazing things with the booking data flowing through a TMC. So if that's of interest, or if you just want to talk to somebody with some experience in travel data, please feel free to get in touch. As usual, I'm joined by Ash and Anne today to help me discuss this list of stories with you. So over to you, Anne.
Thanks, Rian, and welcome, everyone. I'm Anne. I work with LeapShift. Happy to help you with anything related to distribution, one order, NDC, airline retailing. Over to you, Ash.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ash. I'm the host of a weekly business travel podcast called What's Up in Business Travel, where we give you only the important updates in under 15 minutes. Additionally, I'm the Vice President of Client Success at Traxo, and this is Linking the Travel Industry.
So for those new to the event, what we do here is we go through the stories from last week, travel industry related on LinkedIn, and we do welcome and in fact love it if you want to comment. So feel free to share any thoughts on any of the stories we discuss. We'll bring your comment on screen and to engage a bit with that as well. We do like that. So a story that popped up, this almost could have won the one that got away category in my list of categories, but there was a significant outage at Alaska Airlines last week. Just popped up very briefly in my feed, did affect around 300 flights. It had an impact, but it wasn't mentioned anywhere else. I didn't see it anywhere else. Ash, did it make more news over there, or was it just for me?
Well, this happened on the same day as GBTA.
Uh-huh.
If you remember 2 years ago, there was another incident with Delta Airlines and CrowdStrike on the same exact day. So I found that to be real peculiar. The point is that it happened at the same exact time as GBTA. So that was quite interesting. But we didn't hear much of it like we heard on the Delta one with CrowdStrike a couple of years ago. It was very, very low key, even at GBTA.
There is a coincidence there for sure. Yes, that's just too much of a coincidence to not be one, right? Yeah, very interesting. But okay, I'm glad they recovered and, everything's back on track. There was no news about the cause or anything like that. So, all wrapped up and moved on. Nothing to see here, folks. It's all fixed. So there we go. Next story. This is a fascinating one for me. Airlines are starting to impose look-to-book ratios on their NDC agency channels. So I'm just going to do a big sigh and ask Anne for her comment.
I do another big sigh. But I think this clearly shows us that the underlying technology is really the problem. The access transactions is the problem. And like you say very wisely, Rian, and you are spot on that we have to stop with this notion of asking airlines, what have you got? We have to find a better way to deal with not only excess transactions, but transactions in general. And of course, shopping technology is 30 years old. It's the same underlying technology for NDC mostly, I would say. I mean, if we're not looking at those LCCs who just use their own API connections, then they don't have any shopping systems to consider.
What do you think, Ash?
It's quite interesting because I feel like the whole pursuit of airlines trying to engage agencies in this manner is actually no different than what GDSs have done for many years. So I always felt like anytime you engage with your customers in a way where you are trying to encourage a certain type of behavior, it's not necessarily a bad thing either. What they're trying to do is educate the demographic, the groups of people who are now engaging them with a new way. Keep in mind that an agency has to do a lot more searches than an airline does individually. So there's a little bit of education required on the airline side, but at the same time, this is to kind of streamline some of the ways that the TMCs are working with them and what they're seeing from an activity perspective.
Yeah, we don't always agree, but we're going to definitely disagree. So first of all, I mean, this tells us that, like Anne says, the airline doesn't have the control here. So this is a reactive measure to force that control. And this shouldn't be a problem in the first place. There shouldn't be a need to ask. And this is, you say this is a new way. This tells us as well that this is not a new way. This is the same way with just a different layer. And the inherent root cause problem is still there. And the only control the airline can now do is impose a look-to-book ratio. We need to go back to root cause and fix that.
And remember, they can't piggyback off the transactions of the GDS. So no wonder you're going to have an increased look-to-book here. rethinking is needed.
But remember that if you're pulling data in this way, if you're pulling flight information in this way, when you're the TMC, you have to pull it for airlines, even though the traveler will not book that airline. So you're making calls, you're presenting information. The traveler's never booking that airline. They're going to book their favorite airline anyway. So you're still going to have these discrepancies occurring because of the nature of that situation. So I think for airlines, it's about getting educated a little bit on the TMC behavior, which I think they should know. And then, of course, for TMC side, it's about efficiency. A lot of times, just think about this for a second. Forget about NDC for a second. How many GDS calls do TMCs make from the GDS with an airline that the traveler will never fly because that traveler has never flown the airline in 100 years, right? But we still make the call.
Exactly. So just imagine a world where the airline is made aware of who is shopping and an offer is created for that user, right? But we're very far away from that, Ash. So I agree. There's so much wastage, and who ends up paying for it? Well, we all do.
Well, the corporation should pay for it because it's the corporation, by the way, Rian, that demands all the flight options be served up.
Yeah, well, that could be true. Right? But as silly as lowest logical fare, right? It's the same thing. So
maybe they already do. Maybe everyone pays, double dipping for all the payments of all these transactions left, right, and center.
Another fundraising of another company, which I haven't heard of before, doing something incredible with, in this case, they've at least got 414 followers on LinkedIn, less than 10 employees, but a company called Intello AI managed to raise almost €500 million. Did I get that correct?
But no, you didn't get that correct.
Oh.
They raised
$500,000.
578,000 and not million. When I first saw this, and I thought, my word, that kind of money. It's 576,000 euros.
Okay, you guys, you can see we're not fact checked here, so you have to do the fact checking for us.
And you can see that I'm fact checking very unprofessionally.
I am terribly sorry, Intello AI. I will immediately go and update my post.
Don't be sorry. Intello AI would love to have raised 576 million.
Sure. I'm sure, yes. Okay, let's start this again. Intello AI, a company based in the UK, I haven't heard of them before. They specialize in hotel concierge services that are AI driven, and they've raised 575,000 euros. So well done to them. Let's see what they're going to do with that money. And at the next round, they're going to hit 500 million. Is that correct, Ash? Okay.
Yes.
There's some very interesting use cases here. One of them being automatically contacting the hotel with an email about the traveler's arrival, flight arrival, or delays, and just making sure the room is being held, or requesting for the preference of the traveler, away from the elevator or high floor or whatever the case might be. So I think that this is an interesting space. So I will be following Intello AI from now on and seeing where they go. But there are some very interesting use cases here. Amex GBT, they've launched the headline in Business Travel News Europe said they launched a travel management platform for guests. If you read the story a bit further, it's actually allowing people to create events and then invite people from outside the company to, within that event, create their travel for which they can set some parameters, especially for non-employees. I find this quite interesting. So, an interesting development, right?
To me, it's a no-brainer. You have an event, you put lots of people are coming together. But
we do have a comment which we'll bring up in a second. But Ash, what are your comments on this story?
So this is nothing new, folks. We just had GBTA last week, Rian and Ann. And this was the big news out of Amex GBT camp, which is kind of scary that this is the best that we can do. But building a technology that allows you to, let me quote, create profiles, book their own travel through the marketplace, receive support from the TMC, and organizers can set a predefined budget for travel expense and issue a virtual card. This has been done in the industry for decades now. Maybe they kind of connected a couple of new things to each other and somehow made a big deal about it, but virtual card integrated into a booking flow is not a new thing. Nothing here is new. It's just a new way of articulating the same message.
If I read this correctly, I think the thing that's new is the default inclusion or ability of non own employees in the company. So the corporate is creating the event, not the TMC, and they want to invite 3 speakers from outside the organization. And there's been a challenge there because they would have to create those users inside the booking tool, all that stuff. So it's not phenomenal, Ash, but I think that's the new bit.
There's nothing unique about it.
Okay.
You just have a name. That's what we're talking about. I mean, you were talking about a non-profile traveler, and you're collecting information through a form feed, and you're bringing that data back into the booking flow. I'm not even a tech person like you, Rian. I mean, you're more sophisticated than I am.
Sophisticated is not a method I'm usually described as, but fair enough. I'll take it. I'll tell you what I'll do is I'll reach out to Evan Conweiser and ask him what is so new about this, and let's see his answer, and we'll bring that to you next week. Now, there's been a comment on the shopping comment that you made, Ash. Thank you, Stefan. You were saying there to us that we shop for 30 plus pages of options, but we look at 5 pages in the end, and that's just a starting point. So I see why this is for leisure, but for corporate, do we really need that extent? And that's exactly our point, is there's way too much wastage, and we all pay for it. Stefan, thank you very much for your comments and taking part in the event. So I just want to turn to the audience for 5 seconds and say thank you so much for giving us your time on a Monday. We're not done. We've got a few more stories to catch up on, but we really appreciate your attendance here and for giving us your time. And do tell us where you're listening from and just give us a comment and we'll bring that on screen. So thank you very much for giving us your time. Back to my stories. I'm back to my categories of most divisive, most popular, and the one that got away because it seems to work. So one of the posts that caused a lot of divided opinions last week was the coverage of Sabre Corporation's latest survey, which seems to have come back and bitten them where they didn't want to be bitten. And this survey is about content fragmentation. One of the people who wrote a detailed post about it is Corey. And of course, inside of his post, as usual, with Corey's post, there was lots of divided opinions. This is a fascinating development, though. Very interesting how that survey got done and posted by Sabre, and it's got completely the wrong output. If that is how I read that correctly, I'm not sure, Ash. Is that how I'm reading this, right? That Sabre wished they didn't publish that survey?
Yeah, and I think there's a little bit of a trying to move the message in a certain direction going on here as well. I think when Sabre did the survey, the intention was not to portray the situation in the way that Corey's describing. Yeah. So I'll leave it there.
That's true. I don't think they had that intention. Right, Anne?
Yeah, but maybe there's something deeper underlying here. We know that content fragmentation is a fact. We know that we need to do something about it. Question is, when we keep thinking that it should be one place for all, is that really the right line of thinking? I debate that. Shouldn't we just be able to just bring in content from anywhere? Yeah. It's a huge topic. That's actually what I'm thinking, that there's something else here.
It comes right back to that first post, Anne, which is about, we need to move to a world where content is published. People just take the published offer, right? And off they go. So
that sounds like OAG from back in the day. I mean, you're describing OAG a little bit there, Rian. Are we going back to where we started? Corey's right in the sense that there is a lot of effort made by agencies to get content in. And, they have to jump through loops and hoops and all sorts of things. And ultimately, what they're trying to do, they're trying to serve the corporation that has given them the business. And the corporation is a little bit blindsided because they think that they need to perform as a leisure agency, right? So we're back to that other conversation we just had a few minutes ago, which is that we're trying to serve up leisure type content to a business traveler, and it just isn't working. It hasn't been working for 20 years.
Shouldn't it be possible then for just a business traveler to bring in some content that not necessarily is available in the GDS and just aggregate that and bring it into his duty of care?
Now you're speaking my language, Anne. We've been talking about for a long time here at Track.
Next story in my category of the most interactive and liked story of the week. Not really a news story, just a nice post there about, like I said, 4 random guys having a meal at a restaurant. This is on the back of GBTA. And this is Johnny Thorson meeting up with Jay Boehmer and Jeff Klee and Eric Bailey. And they had a great time in a very strange named German restaurant. But that was just a nice post. I see loads of likes and comments on that one. And then the one that got away, really, for me, it goes to the GBTA 2025. As you've already pointed out, Ash, nothing major. announced. Now, afterwards, I got corrected and I was contacted by someone at BCD saying to me, no, the BCD Skylink meetup or hookup was great, big news at GBTA, to which I then pointed out, but we've covered that here on Linking the Travel Industry already a week before. Isn't that right, Ash?
That is absolutely correct. And then we covered the other story of their partnership with Oversea with Agentic AI, formerly known as Fairfly. So yeah, we're a little bit ahead of the curve here at Linking the Travel Industry, but that's why you tune in to this show, to get the information before the rest of the world finds out. And then you can walk around with a know-it-all attitude.
But Anne, it does tell us that there wasn't really anything announced at GBTA, right?
And that's scary that there's been quite a number of events now that we've said that there was nothing major. There was, no big news, nothing super positive to talk about. In my book, that is a bit sort of scary.
I think what's happening, Anne and Rian, from my attendance of GBTA convention, you're right, and I agree with this comment that nothing new is happening. But I'll tell you what might be happening behind the scenes a little bit. There is a growing desire for companies to partner with companies they've never partnered with before. I see a lot of that happening. Before it used to be, we're going to build it ourselves. And so you saw a lot of companies building similar products in the marketplace, maybe with a little nuance based on what their needs are, but then it became a new announcement, right? It became, we're building something new. But now I think what's happening is the industry is tilting towards, hey, if I know Rian does something well, why am I going to build it? I'm going to tap into what Rian does already, and I'm going to partner with him. So the partnership news, by the way, has, I think, grown in number. And I think that's where the industry is headed, is a new time when we partner more than we've ever before, hence the experiences that we might be feeling like nothing new's happening.
No, I would agree. There is definitely a change in attitude towards, let's partner and capitalize on what these guys are specializing in versus doing it ourselves. So yes, that is positive. I will take that. Absolutely. So we do have some extra stories. I'm going to start with one.
Space.
And this is, yes, I know. Ash, why was I on my roof? Once I got up there, I realized, maybe I shouldn't have done that after having 2 beers and a glass of wine. And then I'm thinking, how am I going to get down? Because it looked a bit scary suddenly, So yes, of course, I was up there double checking and triple checking my Starlink equipment, because it is, and this is actually the compliment to Starlink, it is so unusual for that system to be down that when it did go down last week, there was a global outage of Starlink. I immediately thought it's my, wiring and my power supply and my equipment that's failed, because that's just a gut feeling, right? That's just the default instinct. So I was testing all the power supplies at the bottom, and I got so annoyed by it that eventually I got up on the roof to go and double check that, everything's okay up there, etc. And I almost got stuck. But then only when I got back down did I see that there was an outage. So unfortunately, there was an outage, but I take that as a positive, because honestly, I've had it for years and years and years now, and that was the first time I've ever had an issue, and it was all resolved and, all back to normal. So there we go. That's my extra story. And I think you might have one or two.
I have a couple. First of all, and actually need some investigation help from Ash on this one. I caught my eye was Scott Newton, who posted about American Airlines and how their fares, that there is a discount if there's 2 of you traveling or more rather than a solo traveler. Also, the discrepancy, of course, between this as a behavior we don't see on American Airlines International, which, of course, we know that there is Amadeus used as technology there, different technology used for domestic. But the discrepancies are very large. You'll be talking, $700 for a solo traveler, $500 for someone traveling the same trip when there's 2 of you or more.
Absolutely. So interesting development there. Now, I do think that's a wrap for this week. So for those listening in today, thank you very much for giving us your time. Ash and Anne, thank you so much. Over to you, Anne.
Thanks, everyone. And special thanks to those of you who have commented. And of course, Stefan Bingamer, one of the best people I have ever worked with. I miss you so much. Over to you, Ash.
Thank you all for joining today's live recording of Linking the Travel Industry. We record this podcast live every week on Monday, and we ask that you share this event with others that you know. Chances are high that if you enjoyed today's session, those that you know will as well. If you ever miss a show because of time zone or availability, we make the podcast available on businesstravel360.com. This is Linking the Travel Industry, signing off.